Our exploring takes us to southwestern Arizona and a pristine park known as the Green Desert, a spot where the stars light up the sky at night and the scorpions can light up the land and trees. Join us as we visit Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument. I'm your host, Missy Rentz, and this is the Parks Podcast. I'm thrilled to welcome Kate Blanche, the Digital Interpretation and Education Park Ranger at Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument. Prior to Oregon Pipe, Kate worked at Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park and Olympic National Park. Kate, welcome to the Parks Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm going to start with some park stats.
All right.
The park is located in Pima County, Arizona. It was created on April 13th, 1937, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president of the United States. The park is 330,000 acres. In 2022, you had 133,317 guests. There are 28 miles of hiking trails and a few fun facts. It's called the Green Desert and is the wettest desert in the world. There are 650 plant species, 31 species of cacti. It's the home to 3 large columnar cacti, and it is the only place where the Oregon pipe cacti grow naturally. The Sonoran Desert is the most biodiverse desert in the United States, and in 1976, it was awarded the designation of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. This is an incredible park.
It's pretty impressive. I'm impressed by you getting the exact visitor count.
That's
down
you
due
should
to
be
the
impressed by Google.
Thank you, Google.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to start out with something very simple. What is an Oregon pipe cactus?
It is a beautiful columnar cactus. It has many branches, and each branch has about 14 to 20 vertical ribs, which are vertical columns along the branch. And the Oregon pipe cactus is one of 3 columnar cacti we have in the park. One of the reasons this park is so special and Oregon pipe is noted for it is because this is the only place in the United States that the Oregon pipe cactus can be found.
So certainly worthy of the name of a national park. I know that you've talked about that one of the reasons that the national park was created is because it was a pristine Sonoran Desert landscape.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about the creation back in 1937 and why this park is so important to the system.
So, as you mentioned, it was created on April 13th, 1937 by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And what was going on at that point in time was they were looking for an area of the Sonoran Desert that would really represent the Sonoran Desert. Like if you went to the anywhere in the Sonoran Desert, you'd be like, this is the place to go. And this area was selected because of just the pristine landscape and the biodiversity found here. And another important aspect of this landscape too, it is the traditional home of the Autumn peoples as well. So this landscape has an amazing scenic value, an amazing ecological value, and a great cultural value as well.
I was just working on a blog post for this episode, and I was going back through my journals that I wrote in when I was visiting. I was quickly taken back to, the cacti are beautiful, the flowers from them are beautiful, and then the animals are intense and diverse and even like somewhat scary. I went to a ranger program and I was like, how am I going to sleep after this?
Was it about scorpions? What was it about? Do you remember?
It was about the scorpions. And isn't it the scorpion that when you go to find them and you can use like lights because they become iridescent?
Yeah, if you shine a UV light on a scorpion, it'll fluoresce green. It's a really fun thing to do in summertime when they're all out because you can just find them hiding under bushes everywhere.
I want to come back and do that because I wasn't prepared for it at the time. And actually, when I was there, it was right in the middle of COVID. So it was like the only ranger program that I could participate in for like a year. It was late in COVID.
I was probably the one who gave that program.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Who knew it would have brought us back? It was such a good program. The other thing that was really intriguing to me as I was researching is the UNESCO designation. It's not something that I've come across with any of the other parks I've been researching thus far. Can you tell me a little bit about that designation?
Yeah. So UNESCO, as you mentioned, is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and they do a lot of things. They're a really great organization. But in 1971, they created the Man in the Biosphere Project. And I'm just going to quote from something I found on their website because they're going to say it much better than I ever would. Ultimately, what that program was created for was it was started with the intention to test and outline how humans can strike a balance among the apparently conflicting issues of conserving biological diversity, promoting economic and social development, and maintaining associated cultural values. In essence, it's understanding the world around us, the life around us, and how humans play a role and impact that life. So, with this program, biosphere reserves were started to be created. And what these reserves are designated areas, usually pristine areas, where there isn't too much impact from humans. And a lot of research happens in these areas to understand the life in that area, the roles that that life plays, plant life, wildlife, the landscape itself, and then ultimately how humans play a role in that too. And as mentioned earlier, this area was set aside, Organ Pipe, in 1937 to be a pristine exemplar of the Sonoran Desert. So in 1976, we got that biosphere designation, and there's a lot of research that happens in this park. Just this summer, we have 8 different researchers in this park studying everything from bats to toads to toads is a lot of fun, to tortoises, birds. So we have a lot of different researchers from all around the world who come to this park specifically to learn about the Sonoran Desert and how humans impact the life around it.
Is it hard to keep it so pristine?
It can be, yeah, because there's a whole bunch of different factors that play into this. Humans can impact it physically. For example, if you walk on top of cryptobiotic soil, you've destroyed 10,000 years of growth potentially of this life trying to form on this soil. But even from a distance, without even stepping foot into a place like this, humans can impact it via pollution, things like light pollution, things like air pollution can impact these areas, even though we're not setting a single foot into this area. So all this research is playing and studying is how we are affecting these areas and how hopefully we can best mitigate those effects.
And I think it's important to know when you're going to a park and you see things like leave no trace or the signs stuck in the sand that say to please stay on the trail. This is to preserve. It's not because
Correct.
we don't want to pay people to pick up your trash. It's because we need to preserve this land for future generations.
Exactly. It's these areas have been set aside for preservation into the future so that, if I have children and they have those children, those people in the future can enjoy these places just as much as we do today. And of course, the choices we make today is going to impact how this place is preserved into that future.
It really even like strikes a chord with me when you talk about just a step can ruin something that's 10,000 years old. I don't think that really resonated with me until you just said that this is a lot of years that we disturb when we go off trails.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, in the creation of the park, I was reading quite a bit, and a lot of parks have this area when you're claiming land, sometimes it's claiming it for others. And in this area, there were ranchers and miners who were really just did not want this space to become a park. Can you tell me a little bit about that controversy, how it was created? And then it's really a welcoming park. And how do you get past that to be what it is now, which is this really lovely space?
Well, and that's a wonderful question. And you've brought up a good point as well that no matter throughout the history of the NPS, even today, when new parks get designated, there are things happening, human things, whether it's ranching or other impacts that are happening there, that we have to work with the local peoples with the creation of these things to benefit everyone as much as possible. With the history of ranching in this area, the history of ranching actually dates back to the late 1600s with the arrival of Father Kino in this area during the Spanish mission era. He actually had a he had a mission down in Sonoita. So there's been cattle ranching, horses, burros in this area since then. So for hundreds of years. And for more the American arrival in this area in the early 1900s, that's when a lot of that ranching started happening here. And the most prolific rancher that we know in this area was the Gray family, and they arrived in 1919, and they had 7 different children, and they arrived here and they had the most prolific cattle ranching operation in this area. So they were here for almost 20 years before this was designated a national monument. And of course, there's a huge impact that that's having there because these cattle need the different plants in the area. They need the grasses. This is their livelihood. So imagine if you owned a bakery and someone knocked on your door and just said, "Hey, we're going to make this a historic district. You need to get out." It
Right.
doesn't work quite like that. It's like, what am I going to do? And so, of course, it's very understanding that the people in these areas, the miners, the ranchers who are making their livelihoods, are upset by this. What ultimately wound up happening with the ranching and even with some of the mining was that they were grandfathered in. So Victoria Mine ran until the 1970s, and the ranching was allowed to continue with the Gray family until their permit kind of ceased. And that ultimately ended in the 1970s. And by that point in time, by the time that they counted the last head of cattle, was like 1,700 cattle
Wow.
was in the area, which is a lot. And of course, any introduced animal, any introduced plant is going to affect that landscape. And with the introduction of cattle, of course, they eat the grasses, they eat the plants, they do things like trample the smaller plants and cacti. And there are actually several species of grass that almost in this area that almost went extinct because they were getting eaten. So it's just a matter of the impacts that these things can have and balancing that out with trying to protect this area as well. So ultimately, these things have ended in the 1970s. All these things stopped. So the cattle ranching, the mining. But what's really cool as well is that we now also have that cultural history in this park as well. So when you go around this park, you can actually see the remnants of the old mining areas like Victoria Mine. You can go see the old ranching areas at Bates Well and Dos Lamitas and Alamo. And there's signage there kind of explaining that history. So it's ultimately this park is being preserved and protected and for that future generation, but so is that cultural history. And sometimes that conflict plays a role in that history as well.
I do love it when you go to a park and you see that there was life beyond the trees and whatnot. I think it's really fun how we do preserve those elements of the parks. We've talked a little bit about the wildlife in the park. And now that I know you were the ranger that led me on my ranger program, it's even
Right.
more more
We
interesting.
got to verify it, but I
I know,
think I may have
I know
been.
that would have been. So there's venomous animals, javelinas, skunks, coyotes, squirrels, mountain lions. Like when I was in my tent, I was like, "Is this right? Is this right?"
That is correct. Yeah, there's an incredibly diverse amount of animals here. You alerted me that there were skunks. That was something I didn't even know, and I'm the ranger here. But we have, badgers, tons of lizards, reptiles, even amphibians like the Sonoran desert toad reside here. We have desert pupfish, so we actually have fish in a desert.
Wow.
Mud turtles, Sonoran desert tortoises. Yes, the amount of life that you can find in this desert is absolutely astounding.
One of the things that you mentioned here, and then I read a little bit about is the bats. They play a big role in the park, right?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
We have at least 16 different species that I'm aware of. But one of the big bats that we often talk about is the lesser long-nosed bat because they're the main pollinator of the Oregon pipe and a lot of the different cacti in this area. Those bats follow what is called the nectar trail. So they actually migrate with the flower and fruiting of the cacti all the way from central Mexico all the way to northern Arizona and back, following the fruiting and the flowering of the different cacti. And they pollinate the flowers and then the fruits come out and they become fruit eating bats. So it's really cool to just kind of see all that because in summertime, we wind up not getting many visitors during the summertime, but summertime is one of the best times to visit because the amount of wildlife that just starts appearing is absolutely breathtaking,
Wow.
including the bats.
So what is your peak season then? Because it's
Our
hot
peak
there now. We're interviewing in July. It's hot.
It's pretty toasty. Our peak season is usually December through mid-April. So most people usually come down here. So like right now we're getting like 15, 20 visitors a day, whereas during that time we'll get around 300 a day.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
jump.
One thing I want to touch on before we get into planning, and I guess this kind of speaks to the planning, but you're on the border of Mexico. So when I was driving in, going through the checkpoints was a little bit jarring the first time. But
It,
that's just a border crossing further down, but they have these checkpoints that you go through right before you get to the park.
Yeah, it's, and I think everyone gets that experience the first time they go through, like, what is happening? It's kind of that like, did I do something? I was just driving. What's going on?
Right.
The border checkpoints are there. If you are driving towards the park, you shouldn't really have to. They're not interested in people driving through. They're just checking things on the way out, and they're very easy to get through. As you're leaving, they generally are just checking to make sure that everyone in the car is a U.S. citizen, and then they just let you roll on through for the most part. The border itself, of course, is a very different checkpoint because you need your passport. So they are going to make sure that you aren't bringing like fruits and vegetables or things that may have insects or something or some sort of contaminant in them. So that tends to be a bit more of a thorough search, but even then, nothing crazy.
Yeah, and on your website, you talk about it. They do have some safety and some guidelines for making sure that you're not picking up hitchhikers and things like that, just for your safety when it comes to getting closer to the border, which I think is really helpful. Okay, planning a trip. It's a pretty remote park. It's not like in some of these more urban parks where you can easily have a hotel or something that's close by, but you do have a lot of camping options in the park.
We do. We have two major campgrounds. We have Twin Peaks Campground that has 208 sites. There's, I believe, 174 RV sites, some with generators, some not generators. And then there's a bunch of tent sites as well. So we can pretty much hold anyone there. That's an established campground. So the campground amphitheater, if you're interested in ranger programs, is there. There's a bunch of hiking trails that lead out of the campground. It has bathrooms. It has free solar heated showers, which is really nice in the desert.
Really nice. It's nice in a campground to have. It's like one of the
Yeah.
nicest bathrooms I've ever been in.
Yeah, it was just, this was, I think, the first place where I've ever actually seen free campground showers. So I was like, wonderful. It's a really lovely campground. And one of the dog friendly trails leads out of it to the Palo Verde Trail. So that's one of the sites. There's also group sites there. So if you do have a larger party, you can group camp there as well. And those group sites, there's a bathroom down in that area so that it won't be too busy, which is really nice. Besides the Twin Peaks campground, we also have Alamo Canyon campground. This one is better if you're looking for like a more primitive experience. There's only 4 sites and it's camping only. You can park and like do a pop-up tent sort of thing, but it's supposed to be tent only. And there is a vault toilet there. It is just beautifully tucked underneath the Alamo mountain range. So you're just kind of tucked under these mountains in the saguaro forest, and you're just far away from the road. Like it's quiet, it's beautiful, and you get fabulous dark skies out there.
I don't think I've ever been someplace that's more quiet than a night at this campground. It's so incredible. In preparation for that, the other piece of advice I think I would give to people is make sure you get your supplies and stuff before you come into the campground because the nearest town is quite a ways away.
Yeah, Ajo is the closest place to pick up any sort of supplies. Y has a gas station, and then Lukeville, which is right on the border, has a gas station as well. So you can find little things in those areas. But Ajo is going to be the closest place for like groceries or restaurants or anything. The big thing, of course, coming down to this park is the one thing that we try to highlight quite often is making sure that you get your reservation. We're on recreation.gov, and you
Right.
can book same day if the site is available. So you can get here and book a site at the visitor center because we do have free Wi-Fi available to do that. But especially for like places like Alamo Canyon, this is an incredibly popular place to camp. So we always just recommend that you check ahead of time. And what's been nice is we just made that transition this year for Alamo Canyon to go on recreation.gov. And we've had multiple people tell us thank you because they've always wanted to camp there, but it was first come first serve, and they were terrified to have to drive 4 or 6 hours all the way there to just not be able to find a space. So they
It's a
were very
risky.
excited. Yeah, it's incredibly risky. So they were very excited to know that I have this place booked. I have my space. I can finally stay at this campground. So it can be incredibly helpful just to be able to go on there and just make sure that what you want is available. And you can just do that with the click of a button, which is great. For supplies and things like that, making sure that you got plenty of water. You're in a desert. It will surprise me sometimes the people who will not have water. I'm like, what if you break down? This isn't good. Make sure you have water.
Right, right.
Um,
And I think
and
and this leads into the next thing I wanna talk about, which is the hiking. I mean, you exert a lot too when you're there. I mean, even if you're sitting still and not doing anything, you need water. We talk a lot about hiking on this podcast, and that it can be as simple as a walk or as challenging as you want. But I think hiking in a desert it feels very different. Can you talk a little bit about some of the differences and how someone can prepare for a desert hike?
Yeah, so it's a very different feel because especially shade is incredibly difficult to come by. So it's not like if you get overheated where you can sit under a tree or sit under a rock and cool down. It can be incredibly difficult to find that shade. So coming prepared for that sun exposure, knowing that you probably need sunscreen or some sort of long sleeve shirt. We have lots of things that like to poke and prick you here, and we don't want our visitors experiencing that. So especially making sure that you have some sort of long pants or sturdy boots on. This really isn't the best place to come in flip flops because we have things like choyas that can poke on through. And you're a true resident of the desert if you've ever been choyed, which is getting a choya spine in you, and you have to have somebody come and pick it out
Oh,
because it attaches. Just making sure that you're wearing the appropriate gear. If you're going to be out in the sun all day, having sunscreen, making sure you have plenty of water, especially in the heat of the summer. It's recommended a gallon of water per day, which sounds like an enormous amount, but it will go very quickly out there. Just making sure you're prepped. And then another thing to carry too, especially because of cholla spines or cactus spines, is either just a tiny pair of pliers or a little comb to kind of help brush it out.
in the ranger program, you guys talked about those, and then I noticed them everywhere, and that's a great piece of advice. I'm gonna have to add that to my emergency kit that I carry.
Do it, do it.
Um, I also think the terrain, I think it's hard. It's a different, but for me, more challenging hike on that more sandy dirt terrain than it is, say, on a pressed mountain in
And
Yosemite.
you're exactly correct. That it's a very different kind of rock. You're not dealing with granite here or sandstone, which is a very grippy rock. It's the most of this area is rhyolitic rock. It's volcanic rock, and so is granite, but the texture of it is a little bit different. And while it is still grippy, it is much more susceptible to breaking off, which means that here in this terrain you deal with a lot more large rocks, a lot more pebbles. So it's a very different terrain than say walking around in the Sierra Nevadas where you're going to be dealing with a lot of dirt. You wind up dealing with a lot of either deep sands or very rocky, pebbly areas. And especially if you're climbing up, it can be, I wouldn't say slippery is the word, but it's very much like in some places it can be like two step forwards, one step back, depending upon the terrain. So it's just one of those things to note. Most of the hikes that we have here in the park are relatively easy in that manner where the terrain is relatively nice, but especially like Bull Pasture or anything where there's a bit more of a climb, it can definitely be a bit more challenging than say doing the same kind of climb in the Sierras where you're on a more grippy granite.
Yes. Okay. Now you guys have a program called I Hike for Health.
Yes.
It's unique. I haven't seen anything like it. Can you tell us some about I Hike for Health?
Yeah, it's a really cool program that a lot of the southern parks in Arizona do. So we're not the only ones. I'm going to throw that out there, but Saguaro, Tumacacori, Coronado, Fort Bowie, and Chiricahua also do it. Those are the ones I know of. So there may be others. But what the program entails is that you hike 5 miles and take photos along your trail. So whether it's at a trail sign or at this like Victoria Mine, taking a photo of Victoria Mine with yourself, and then you come back to the visitor center and you let the ranger know that you've hiked your 5 miles. And the ranger is going to verify that you have. Sometimes I like to razz people and be like, I see you only hiked 4.8 miles. I'm not that cruel, but sometimes it's a little fun to do. You hike your 5 miles and you just show the ranger your photos, mainly because we just love seeing the photo. But then afterwards, once we know that you have done your 5 miles, we have these gorgeous little pins with a Oregon pipe on them that say Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument Hike for Health. They're beautiful pins. They're very tiny, and we give them to the visitor. It's a wonderful memento, and it's especially fun if you are visiting the other parks to get your full collection of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Another unique factor about Oregon Pipe is you guys are pet friendly, and it's a real hit or miss throughout the park system if it's pet friendly. Much harder to find pet friendly in the southern, more desert parks. I'm going to link to the website on your pet friendly activities, but can you talk a little bit about pets in the park?
Yeah, so we have a lot of pet friendly trails within the park. We have three big ones. One is the perimeter trail around the campground itself, and that's a mile long. So that's a great one to take your pet on. We also have a trail that connects that perimeter trail down to the visitor center called the Palo Verde Trail, which is actually one of my favorite trails. This is a very beautiful, mellow trail to hike, but that is definitely friendly for Fido as well. And that's about 1.3 miles. And then the Campground Nature Trail itself is a very short paved trail, but that one's also very friendly for pets as well. And that's a great way to learn about the park. It's got a lot of cool informational signage about the nature in the area. And I mean, if you wind up combining those things, it can be over 4 miles of trails where you can walk your dog. There's even in the campground area, there's actually little stands with baggies to collect dog poop. So we do actually supply that sort of thing, and there's trash cans nearby. So, just want to make sure that the trails stay clean. So that's incredibly important too.
Yeah, it's great. And I really liked the park, and the time I was there, it was very hot. And I liked that you had a lot of short trails. So it's not something that you feel like you have to go out and do a 10 or 15-mile hike. You can see really incredible things in sometimes under a mile, but a mile trail.
Yeah, we have a great variety. So, and what's kind of neat too is there's a lot of wilderness area too. So if you want to go climb a peak, you can go do that. Pinkley Peak is a great place to hike, but you can kind of build your own adventure too, which is one of the really wonderful things about this park, because not every park will let you do that. But yeah, we have trails, everything from a very easy, less than a mile, to really one of the longest hiking trails we have is out to Lost Cabin, and that's 8 miles round trip. There's a whole section in the Sonita Basin that connects to Twin Peaks Campground. So if you do want to make like a very longer day hike, it's very easy to kind of interweave and connect the trails to make the perfect size trail for whatever your needs are or wants that day.
In the create your own adventure of the park, your ranger programs are spectacular.
Oh, thank you.
They only happen during part of the year. They are not happening right now in July. But can you talk to me about the ranger programs and what sort of programs that you guys are offering?
Yeah. So what we normally offer in the wintertime, the ranger programs usually run from December through mid-April. We usually have a patio talk that goes on right at the visitor center, and that has seating. It depends upon the time of day, but can be in the shade as well. But there's seating, and that's usually about a 20 to 45-minute program, depends upon the type of program being offered. Some of those will be little walks or little hikes along like the nature trail in that area as well. So it can vary a little bit there. We also have evening amphitheater programs. So at Twin Peaks Campground, we do have a amphitheater, and rangers do evening talks there, usually at 7 o'clock, and it runs roughly about 40 minutes. And all these different talks cover a variety of topics. It's usually, what that ranger is really interested at the time. I've done scorpion talks, I've done snake talks, but we get people who do plant, we do people who do geology. We also do dark sky programs too. So we actually have Celestron telescopes. We're hoping to do a lot more this upcoming year as well. So if you are coming in 2023, 2024, we're hoping to break out those scopes quite a bit. We'll do dark sky talks talking about the stars above, and then we have the telescopes to look at those deep space objects too.
It's incredible. I want to come for one of those. And one thing I haven't really talked about in any other episode is the fees for the park and the park pass. There are some parks that you can go to without a fee, but most of them, there is a day fee, or you can do a pass. And can you tell us a little bit about the park pass?
We do both have like a normal kind of day pass. It's actually a 7-day entry pass, but we also do the interagency or the the Beautiful pass. And what that America the Beautiful pass is, there's different levels. So we have like senior ones, we have the yearly one, we have military ones, we have access ones, and the price for each varies. Like the military and the access pass are free. A big one that we're really excited about, especially if you have kids, is the fourth grader pass. So if you have a fourth grader, they can get the whole family into the park with their pass for free. You just have to make sure that you go to the park and let them know you have your fourth grader, and they can get a free pass for a year, which is a really great program.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's like get the kids out there.
Yes.
But in general, the yearly annual pass is an $80 pass that lasts for a year, and that covers any entry into the national park system, and also covers the other agencies as well: BLM land, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife areas, Forest Service areas. So all those are covered by that interagency pass. So if you ever go to those areas, there's usually a sign saying that, like, this is the fee. If you have this pass, make sure to display it, and then it's covered. So that interagency pass It's $80. Most national parks run between 25 to 35 for entry. So if you go to 2 to 3 national parks, it's paid for itself.
It's a great
So
deal if you're
it,
able to do it and interested, particularly to your point, if you're going to more than one park, it's a really great deal.
and most people visiting national parks are making a big long road trip out of it. So it winds up working out very well. If you are just interested in coming to Oregon Pipe and just want to visit for the day or up to 7 days, we do have a vehicle entry pass, and that covers everyone in the vehicle for up to 7 days, and that's $25. If you are on a motorcycle, it's $20. And if you are walking or biking, it's a $15 entrance.
What else should visitors know when coming to the park?
I think something that's very important for visitors to know is that, we're here. A lot of people wind up passing through our park, heading to Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point area, and we will have visitors stop in the visitor center who have been passing this way for over 30 years. And they go, "This is my first time ever actually stopping here." I'm like, "Well, welcome. You're in a national park." And they don't realize that. And it's really an eye-opening time for them. So I would definitely say that put us on your list of places to go because this is an incredibly beautiful park. Don't just drive past this on your way to the beach. We're definitely worth stopping at and exploring because it is an amazingly beautiful, amazingly diverse snippet of the Sonoran Desert.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, as we wrap things up, I'm going to do a speed round with you. Just
Yes.
answer with what comes to mind. Doesn't have to be speedy, but let's dive into this. What is your earliest park memory?
My earliest park memory is very faint, but in second grade, I went to Hopewell Furnaces. I think it's a national monument. I remember very little of this, but I don't remember the park at all, admittedly, but I remember they made us do like a clay impression of the furnace, and I kept that for years. That is my first national park. If the one that I recall appropriately was Fort Pulaski, because I lived in Savannah, Georgia for 4 years, and going into that one and walking around the back and being like, there's a lot of canyon ball holes in that wall.
And what made you love the parks?
So for the parks themselves, it's a bit of a story, but where I grew up, I never went hiking or camping or any of that growing up. And when I was 30, I decided to do a cross country road trip because I'd only lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or Savannah, Georgia. So like all I know about Idaho is it had potatoes, just these very vague things. At Fort Pulaski, I wound up getting that pass, and I wound up driving to Mesa Verde. And as I entered there, I got a ticket for one of the things. And I'm like, okay, you need to drive another hour and a half to get there. And it was my first time experiencing a park where you enter and then you have to keep going. But until that moment, I'd see mountains in a painting or something, and it was just this very abstract thing. But driving up to the Longhouse in Mesa Verde, you could see all around and you could see these gorgeous mountains. And I'm like, those mountains in that painting exist somewhere more than likely. And that was really my intro to the parks themselves and kind of paying attention to the natural landscape. I was all of a sudden I got interested in rocks, I got interested in geology, I got interested in mountains, I got interested in the ocean. Whereas, it created an inspiration to learn more about this world. So for the parks, my that love really just kind of spans to all those parks.
And what is your favorite thing about Oregon pipe cactus?
I would say the dark skies. I love being able to look at the sky and being able to see thousands of stars across that. Where I'd grown up, I might be able to see like a few stars of the Big Dipper or Orion. And I remember coming out west and looking up and just being dazzled by the fact that you could see the stars. And I didn't know that the Milky Way was visible until I came out west. And of course, Oregon Pipe is a place where you can see the Milky Way. So it's just an absolutely breathtaking dark sky that you can find here.
What's your favorite thing to do at Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument?
I'm a huge hiker, so I would definitely say that. I also just really enjoy interacting with people coming here because most of the time, this may be their first interaction with people coming to the Sonoran Desert. And most people coming in, they have a picture of a desert being a very barren landscape, and they come in and they go, there's just trees and bushes and there's so much plants all around, and just kind of seeing that amazement that a desert is very green and very lush. So it's really a pleasure to always interact with visitors and kind of and get to share that experience with them.
What park have you yet to visit but is on your bucket list and why?
Haleakala. I have always wanted to go to Hawaii. I love volcanoes. I would love to see one in action. So Haleakala, I can't say it now. Haleakala is a big one on my bucket list.
What are three must haves you pack for a park visit?
Oh, water. Lots and lots of water, and then some more water. But definitely water, sturdy boots. Gotta have sturdy boots. I wind up doing a lot of hiking. So I've seen people out in sneakers. And of course, there's everyone kind of hikes in the way that they like. Some people do like hiking in sneakers, but I tend to get a lot of gravel or bump my feet a lot. So I'm definitely a sturdy boot person. And then my day pack, because I usually wind up using a reservoir. I can put all my salty snacks in there and just being able to kind of hold everything. Having a nice light day pack is a really go-to for me.
What is your favorite campfire activity?
I've discovered I have a friend who's a librarian and she'll come down for fires that we'll have here and she will bring a children's book and read us a children's book around the campfire and it is so fun. I highly recommend it. Definitely favorite activity.
Tent, camper, or cabin?
See, that's a hard choice because I used to work as a trailhead slash wilderness ranger in Sequoia. So I'm used to living out of tent and backcountry cabins, and they both have benefits. I would say though that I ultimately like the tent because I like being able to pick up and move and go somewhere else the next day.
Hiking with or without trekking poles?
Gonna have to say both again, and that goes back to that. If I am hiking with my day pack, so a very light pack, and I'm not doing anything too strenuous, so not a lot of uphill, I usually will get forfeit the hiking poles and just not bother with them because I don't need much assistance. If I am wearing my backpacking pack and I have 30 pounds on my back, or if I'm doing some really strenuous hikes going up thousands of feet in elevation, I definitely take the poles. They are a lifesaver on your knees.
What is your favorite trail snack?
Trail mix is so overrated. I feel like it's overused, but I love trail mix. Mozzarella sticks, though. Mozzarella sticks, I will consume those like crazy. I love mozzarella sticks. They carry so easily. They don't melt. Definitely a fan of those.
What is your best animal sighting?
We had when I went down to Kita Bakita last time, which is a beautiful oasis here in the monument. We actually went down with a school group and we took binoculars and we arrived. And there is what I believe was a great blue heron in the middle of Kita Bakita. And it stayed around the entire time we were there. So we all just immediately pulled out the binoculars and we're just admiring this heron. Because kind of like the skunks you had mentioned, I did not know great blue herons were in this area, and I found out that they were. So that is what I believe it was. I don't have full verification, but that was an amazing sighting.
What is your favorite sound in the park?
I would say the monsoon rains. If you come from mid-July through mid-September, that's when the monsoon season happens because we have 5 different seasons instead of 4 here in the park. So we have the dry summer and the monsoon summer. So right now we're in dry summer when all the cacti flowers and fruit wind up blooming on the cacti. And then we're about to move into the monsoon summer. And it's essentially like if you just picked up the park and put it in Florida and you just got dumped with hurricanes every day. That's essentially what happens here. We get these amazingly beautiful thunderstorms that roll in with high winds and just dump rain all across the desert. They're absolutely spectacular. What winds up happening during that time is, of course, the desert gets very green, very lush, and very verdant. But the sound of the rain, it's starting. The sound of that rain hitting the pavement and hitting that dirt is just so magical to hear in the middle of the desert where it's usually so dry.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Kate, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Parks Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Until the next episode, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the parks. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like and share on your favorite podcast platform. Music for the Parks Podcast is written, performed, and produced by Porter Hardy. For more information, please follow us on Instagram at The Parks Podcast or visit our website at theparkspodcast.com.